Dr. Reddy, you make me feel very humble when you say you are going to learn from us. We are here to learn from you. You are a fountain of wisdom and Swami's teachings, and we are constantly learning from you. We are looking forward to your address this afternoon.
I can just add, we are in a mutual learning process.
Yes, correct.
Okay, so if you can just add the slide. So the objectives for this meeting are three things. One is to be very clear on definitions, because the definitions are important so that you can fill the survey tools when they are given to you in the best manner, and we then collect reliable data. Now the data is very important because we will talk about later on about the data. The data is a management tool because the data gives us some feedback on what is happening in the Sai organization, where are the challenges, and what we need to do about them. So data is not just a collection of facts and figures, but the data is actually collecting information that will be of value in the progression that we create in the Sathya Sai education worldwide. So it's very, very important that you understand that segment. Then we want to share with you some experience of our, we have so far done accreditation for 11 schools. We have got self-review reports from most of the schools, not all of them, but most of them, and we have examined those, right? And we are in the process of also undertaking accreditation in more schools. And we want to talk about our experience because they're very relevant to how we can strengthen the schools and the institutes, how we can create a real impact through Sathya Sai education, through the schools and the institutes. So that's the segment that we may not be able to cover in the short period that we have here. And with your permission, Dr. Reddy, we may continue that at the next time we come here, or we can do a follow-up workshop.
Sure.
Okay, so I'm going to give you a brief overview of the history of Sathya Sai education. Swami started his mission in, now it's the 50th year. And when he asked mothers to undertake some teaching of children, initially it was the understanding that it was Hindu culture. But later on it became very clear that it is spiritual education through human values. And the content of human values is the critical element. Now, in our understanding of human values, we have developed various modalities. We have got, and I think that this is where clarification is needed. What are the various modalities of Sathya Sai education, which is relevant to the training of teachers, the educational material that we have in the schools, the educational material that we have in the institutes, the training of the facilitators and trainers, and also of the parents, and the various programs we have in the Sai centers. So now, just to give you a brief philosophical aspect of Swami, his teachings are vast. They are full of wisdom. And we have obviously shared this many, many times before. It is the practice of values at the end that is the determinant of whether or not we have understood Swami's message. If we don't practice the values, then we can have any amount of information. It is of no value. Guru Nanak said, to have all this spiritual knowledge in your head is like books loaded on a donkey. So we don't want to carry a lot of information. We want transformation. So the information is of value only to the extent that it can cause transformation. So the philosophy behind Swami's teachings is that currently humanity is at crossroads. We have developed a culture which is very debased culture, which is very materialistic, and we need to sanctify, we need to create sacredness in our homes, in our institutions, including schools, and in all our interactions with the public, so that we inaugurate a new global civilization, which is based on values and not on military power and money and manipulation and politics. That's the idea. So this is a very, very important and, I guess, a radical operation on the planet. And we are the instruments. We are the instruments of the Sai organization, the instruments and all the various institutions of the Sathya Sai organization are the, if you like, you're the doctors, you're the midwives, which is going to bring in a new culture of values. Right? So we are we are in that position. It's very important to understand from the neuroscience point of view that currently the children are greatly handicapped. They're greatly handicapped because of the education we give them. We are getting into a situation where the vocabulary of the children is reducing, where their associative areas of perception are decreasing. Their attention span is decreasing because of the culture we have created through the media and also the culture we have created in the homes. So we need really a modality of education that will be concerned with the full development of the prefrontal cortex and not the reptilian brain. See, currently we have a culture which emphasizes the growth of the reptilian brain, the reactive brain, not the reflexive brain, not the reflective brain. So Swami's teachings are focused both on the adults, on the young adults, and the senior devotees, as well as on the children. But the children are in a more formative phase because their brains are still developing. Their brains are developing over a period of long time. And you know, it's a funny thing that when we begin to take a look at how the brain develops, we see that at the time of birth, just before birth, there's a tremendous activity, there's a tremendous amount of neurons that form. And then it is the environment we give, both while the baby is in the utero and immediately after birth, that determine the way in which the brain will develop. It's very important. That means parenting becomes very important in terms of what portion of the brain we develop in the child and how to what capacity we develop the children. So mother as the first teacher, the interaction between the mother as a model is responsible for the development of the brain and all the capacities in the children. When we talk about a model, we say the teachers in the Sai centers are models. What do we mean as role model? What do we really mean? We mean that a model is the potential that a child can develop to. A child can develop to the potential that the model depicts. So it becomes very important that we understand the role of the teachers as role models is you are determining the growth of the personality of the child by modeling your behavior, by modeling how you interact with people, by modeling how you are a spiritual being, how you solve your problems, how you interact with other people, how you relate with other people. So I think that's the philosophical basis. Now, we will talk about the impacts of Sathya Sai education, not at this time. We have, as education committee, we have focused a lot in the last 3.5 to 2 years really, but in the last 3.5 months, Doris has put in an enormous amount of effort to get that book with all the SSEHP programs. Now the SSEHP programs are really there for inspiring everyone so that we can undertake further work. The next step that we have to take, and I'm really looking forward to that, is to do research. So that we establish SSEHP program as a credible, wonderful, the best program in the world for shaping the personality of the children. And the schools and the institutes are the vehicles for that. Next one. Okay, now just on the definition. You've been here before, please feel free to interrupt. If you don't understand, just raise your hand and we'd like to just discuss so that it's properly understood. The term Bal Vikas was used initially for the classes. In fact, initially it was called Bal Vihar. Then it changed to Bal Vikas. Bal Vikas means blossoming of children. And Bal Vikas was the term used by the Indian organization. And because this was the source, this was the mother source from where all the material went to different countries, then we adopted that term in the overseas countries. But many, many years ago, now this is about 2 decades ago, maybe longer, decision was made by the international organization to make this program not Bal Vikas, which is a Sanskrit term, but to call it Sai Spiritual Education, SSE. So I think in the international organization, we should not be using the word Bal Vikas. It's a good word. It is used by the Indian organization. We have nothing against it. But in the international organization, we use SSE. Sai Spiritual Education. And that is the term that is used in the International Organization for classes held in association with Sai centers. Now, there has been a steady change in the composition of Sai centers, particularly of the children. Because some children come into Sai centers for spiritual education, but they are not children of the devotees. And this is very important. In some countries, the Sai centers have responded to that by changing to SSEHV from SSE. And that is not really right. Because in our Sai centers, even though children come from the non-devotees, we have to train our children in the faith in the form of Sathya Sai Baba. So we should not be modifying our programs in the Sai centers simply to accommodate children coming from non-devotees who come to the Sai centers. If we want to do a program based on values as opposed to the form of Sathya Sai Baba, where we are not inducting them in the faith in the form of Sathya Sai Baba as an avatar, it is okay. But then we should be calling that SSEHV. And that should take place not in the Sai center, preferably, but outside of the Sai center. So these are the two terms I want total clarity. SSE is a program which is on human values, but which has an essential element on the life and teaching of Sathya Sai Baba. Sai Baba as an avatar. So that we have faith in the form of Sathya Sai Baba in the children who come to SSE classes. Those children who simply want values education, and many parents, they're looking at the impact of SSE on the children generally, because we have dramas, we have convocations, we have public addresses by children and so on, are very motivated to having simply their own children with the same level of confidence, also being able to take part in drama and so on, and they want their children to grow up like that. That's great. But they don't want them to have induction into Sathya Sai Baba's form as an avatar. So for them we have the program called SSEHV, Sathya Sai Education in Human Values, where the focus is on human values rather than on spiritual education with Swami as the avatar. Is that distinction very clear? Yes.
In the first slide, it is Sathya Sai Education.
Yes.
And the second slide, it is Sai Spiritual Education.
Okay.
So that is a
There
bit
is a very big
confusing for
difference.
us.
I'll come to that. Satya Sai Education is everything by the teachings of Sathya Sai Baba. This includes all the discourses, it includes the Sanatana Sarati, it includes the radio side, it includes books written by things, everything globally is Satya Sai Education. Sai Spiritual Education is a program for the children based on Sathya Sai Baba's avatar, on his life and teaching, and on human values. Okay, so the distinction between the two should be clear, because otherwise we say SSE is Sathya Sai Education. It's not. SSE is Sai Spiritual Education.
I think it's good also to mention that this is why we never abbreviate Sathya Sai Education, because then it can be misunderstood as SSE, as you were pointing out, Sai Spiritual Education. So SSE is Sai Spiritual Education.
Thank you.
So, but Sathya Sai Education as a whole, with all the programs, with all the material and all this is the head of everything, and we tend not to abbreviate that, not to create misunderstandings.
Okay, so it's the global overarching body, Satya Sai Education, right? All right. So next one. Okay.
And nowadays people abbreviate for everything. Nalita is not famous for that. Some of the younger girls. So we should make sure that Sai Education is not abbreviated as SSC,
Exactly.
because it can create confusion.
Confusion.
That message should be very clear. People don't abbreviate Sai Education.
Exactly.
Sai Education.
It has been also used like we have SSE and then a little D after Sathya Sai Education to sort of discriminate better. So it could Sathya Sai Education.
So that if you do SSEHV, then you
No, SSEHV we're just coming to now.
Now, we're coming to that now.
Okay, SSEHV.
This is the whole, it's, yeah.
Sai spiritual education is very specifically about the children. Sathya Sai education is the global overarching framework of everything that Sathya Sai Baba taught.
Umbrella.
I said overall umbrella, everything. Okay. Now, Sathya Sai education in human values, SSEHV, abbreviation SSEHV. SSEHV is the term used to describe a variety of programs without reference to Sathya Sai Baba as an avatar. As the term says, Sathya Sai education in human values. It's a program based on human values. The definition of those values is given by Swami. Now, the fact that he says love is the undercurrent of all values. He also says divinity is love. Right? So, what is divinity? Let's understand what is divinity. What is God? According to his teachings, God is here in this moment. It's in the eyes, your eyes I can see God. It's in your eyes. It's in your heart. It's here in the interaction. It's outside, it's above, it's below. So when we say divinity, it's according to Sathya Sai Baba, everything is divinity. Manifestation is divinity. This world is a manifestation of divinity. So we don't need to labor that point. In SSEHV we say the focus is on human values. Because without value, see what is the definition of dharma? Dharma is really the manifestation of water. The dharma of water is to flow. Oh, cool. The dharma of fire is to burn. So when we focus on dharma, when we focus on peace, when we focus on love, when we focus on non-violence, when we focus on right conduct, and the programs are based on values, those values have origin in divinity, but we don't labor that point. People want simple answers, simple solutions. They want values. And really, at a practical level, what is important is our conduct, our behavior, how we are putting values into our life. So SSEHV's program is a very pragmatic program. It's a program based on values, on human values. So it's we don't bring in Sathya Sai Baba's form as an avatar in that. Do you want to say something?
Can I just add something? Because there's many human values programs going on in the world today. And what is different with our human values program? It is that SSEHV is a spiritual program, and the difference between us and other human values program is the unity aspect. Unity in head, heart and hand, unity in diversity, and unity in diversity and things like that. So this is the importance of our SSEHV program, and this is why we are different from other human values program who is just focusing on values, because I often meet this when we talk about this about values, that they miss it is the spiritual values.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Yes, and since it's spiritually oriented, why is it called Sathya Sai? Shouldn't it be Sai, spiritual education in human values then?
The methodology of Sathya Sai education in human values is unique. It develops all the 5 personality domains. It caters to multiple intelligences. It caters to neural development of the brain. It caters to the development of the intelligence of the heart. It even caters to the intelligence of the gut. It's a full program. It's an amazing program. So I think we cannot take away Sathya Sai from that. It's very important. I mean, the Dalai Lama talks about human values. If you take a look at some of the literature in schools, written by legal experts, they talk about human values. But the definition of human values according to Sathya Sai Baba is human values are inherent in everyone. They are, just let me finish. Human values are inherent, they are part of human nature. They are not imported from outside. We can manifest divinity through human values. That is his definition. So our programs of Sathya Sai Education Human Values are very complete programs because they develop the heart, the mind, and the body. You know, so you're going to say something.
Yeah, I fully agree, of course. But just for semantics, to make it easier, wouldn't Sai be enough? Does it have to be Sathya Sai? Just because.
There was a
Yeah,
they go
that
with
I want to clarify. Sai is, one time I asked Swami for something. Swami says there are so many Sais. There's Shirdi Sai, other Sai, Bala Sai. So be particular. This is gave a very clear instructions to me. All this way, I'm very particular. Anybody says Sai, I'm Sathya Sai. Every time I try to use that word, Swami specific divine command that use always Sathya Sai and other people who use the name Sai for other purposes.
just to clarify and amplify
May I
your
ask
point.
you to say something too? Because Marianne just said that the difference between other human values programs and this program is the spirituality of it. So what Jan says, we could perfectly call it Sathya Sai Spiritual Education and Human Values Program. Add the word spiritual to define the difference with other human values programs.
But I think one thing that is true as a purpose that works, but just for the sake of changing it, Sathya Sai Education Human Values Program is a spiritual program, and it has been used like that for so long, so many in the community, in the international thing. So change it just for the sake of changing, it will create for us some difficulties rather than helpful, because we are not trying to achieve anything, but Sathya Sai Education Human Values Program is now recognized by many people and is working out. So I think my feeling is I would just stick with that. And it is a human values or spiritual
Yes.
basis. It is implied in that. So by adding or not adding, I don't think it will make a difference.
I just want to make one point, just for clarification. The word Sai is used in Punjabi and
For
in
God,
yeah,
spiritual, yes.
it's any saint is Sai. Sathya Sai is very specific. It's the name of the personality that manifested here. Sorry.
Yeah, I think we have
But
to be
Leonardo's and Jan's point is spiritual, but it's implied. For me, it is in the name itself, is implied.
Yeah, but sir, I think there's a real problem if you add the word spiritual, because we would have a big problem in China.
Right.
Yes.
And also, we've had, on one occasion, and Margaret knows this, we had our training program cancelled because they thought it was a religious program. So we're very much susceptible to the people in government and what they understand. So we just don't want to.
So just let us leave it, because when something is running smooth, we don't need to think and create challenges, just leave it.
And it gives us the possibility to go deeper and explain and use words and terms which is accurate and matching the society that we are in. So I think it's working well for us.
Okay,
Yeah.
go ahead, please.
So the other thing is the power of the name.
Yeah.
The power of the name, I think when we talk about Sathya Sai Education, we are talking about the power of the name. Okay, so everyone is clear about SSEHP, right? And why we said that we don't want to modify it. So SSEHP program, all these community classes that we have, where we have focus on human values according to the definition of Sathya Sai Baba, for children in the schools, for training of the teachers. Now we can have SSEHP projects, SSEHP programs, SSEHP workshops. The various initiatives like workshops, projects, programs does not alter the fact that they are all about human values according to the definition that Sathya Sai Baba has given us. Clear? Okay, we move next one. Okay. Now we have got community projects and community program. Any ongoing SSEHP program for the youth, teens, adults that is being offered in any community or neighborhood given by trained SSEHP personnel. The training is important. We can't just pick up, because we are a devotee, we can't run an SSEHP program. It is very important to be specifically trained in the language. Yesterday we had a meeting here, and we were talking about the language that we use in the community. The language that we use in the community is not to proselytize. It is not to convert people to become Sai Baba devotees. The language that we use in the community, we want to work, we are the workers, to improve our communities, to bring them onto a more solid foundation of human values. So that all our institutions, whether they are schools or they are businesses or they are government offices or they are police or they are military, whatever institution there are, we can undertake a revival of those institutions if we can bring in an deeper understanding of human values and how we can transform ourselves through our work, because we can spiritualize work. And I think it's very important that we have trained people delivering these programs. So it's not anybody who is inspired by Swami, that is good, who is inspired by Swami's teaching and they're motivated to run a program, they must undergo proper training. So it's no use going into the community and creating confusion, because if we create confusion, we fail Swami. We may be motivated well, but we have done damage. And it is often difficult to retrieve the damage because it gives the program and the organization a bad name. So we need people who are trained. So we will say that SSCHV program, you can undertake all these programs provided you have the training. And this is important because we'll show a slide later on, where we have the institutions within our organization. We've got our National Education Coordinator and all the training of teachers. We got the institutes, we got the school, right? We got the 3 institutions that are concerned with delivery of education. But it's the institutes that deliver the SSCHV training at present. If we want to do SSCHV in the community, we should either go to the institute or get the institute to come to us to give us the training so that we are skilled in the language, our values, and how to interact with the public. The institutes have been doing this thing now for 20 years. There's a lot of experience in the institutes, and the institutes are willing to help anyone who wants to deliver programs and to undertake the training to be able to deliver the programs. So people must be trained. SSCHV individual classrooms can be run by individual school teachers. Sometimes, in our diploma programs, teachers come. They are either from the organization from outside. They're given the training in SSCHV, but it is not a whole school program they can launch because there is resistance in the school. We have seen this often. But what they do is they launch the SSCHV program in their own classroom. So we say the SSCHV teacher who has completed SSCHV training is implementing SSCHV in a school or in the classroom. A whole school program is best because you convert, you reculture the school. We call it reculturing the school because you establish a new culture, a new cultural values. So a whole school program is best, but there are also very effective programs that are being run currently by individual teachers in SSCHV in their classrooms. And often they see the changes in the children in the classroom and it spreads to other classes. So that's another, if you like, a modality in SSCHV. Next one. There's specialized work. There's specialized workshops, especially people trained by institutes in specialized training, in specialized workshops like leaderships or communication skills or parenting or health or healthy eating, vegetarianism. But if they are delivered by people who are trained properly, they'll be more effective. Otherwise, people think that, otherwise the impact is less. All right. Sathya Sai Education in Human Values is also the term used to describe the programs in the Sathya Sai schools. In the Sathya Sai schools, we don't deliver SSC. We deliver SSEHV. Because generally speaking, I know that there are some schools predominantly with Sai Devotee children. But we will come later on to a segment, we will ask the question, why do we have Sathya Sai schools? You should be reflecting on that. But if we have Sathya Sai schools, the program in the Sathya Sai schools should be SSEHV. It should be focused on values and not on the form of Sathya Sai Baba. In many schools which have exclusively devotees, and they are mostly Hindu, or exclusively Hindu, they have tended to use SSE. But it is not the right way to do. I think because we are creating then an identity issue. Most of the young people go through an identity crisis anyway. But we don't want to confuse them further by giving them SSE in their schools. It should be SSEH. They can go to the Sai Center and get SSE as well. Okay, and this is Sathya Sai Education. Sathya Sai Education, sister asked the question. Now it's very clear, Sathya Sai Education is everything. So these are the terminologies. Okay? Are there any questions on any of this?
Yes, she mentioned about how our program is unique. So can you explain more so that
SSEHV or SSE?
whatever Sathya Sai SSEHV is different than other moral education?
Okay, let's take SSE first. I make a distinction between spirituality and religiosity. Religiosity is concerned about culture, a particular culture of a particular religion, and it's an induction. It's a kind of an imposition on a child so that it sinks into their brain as part of their identity. Okay, Taliban do a very good job, right? So that is religiosity. Spirituality, on the other hand, is about spirit. Spirit has no, as I understand, I've not met my spirit, but one day I will. Spirit, on the other hand, has no religion. Spirit is a direct connection with divinity. It is your manifestation of divine qualities by relating with the intrinsic divinity that is within you as your core, right? So, in SSEHV programs, it is holistic development of the soul, of the mind, and of the heart. We have methodology of the 5 teaching techniques amplified by other teaching techniques which are currently used in education, such as making a concept map of values, visualizing the values, and so on. We have used that fairly extensively in China. It has been very impactful in enhancing understanding of values. But basically, SSEHV program is a complete program about meeting with the human developmental needs to the core. From the soul to your external engagement in the world of work. There is no other program that can even touch it. You know, we have got emotional skills, and we have got democratic values, and we've got other many values program. But SSEHV is an amazing program designed very specifically by the avatar to transform humanity. And we can go into the nuts and bolts of it, and we do that in our diploma courses, right?
So because other human values, Manoj, what they do is they could just touch on moral values, whereas this is more going deep into the underlying spirit of love, actually, essentially. The emphasis more on all angles, which other programs, to my knowledge at least, they don't do
Yes,
this.
because morality, the word morality is derived from the word more. More is what is inherent in your culture. So let's take a look at how our culture evolved. We take a look at the value of modesty. In the West, children don't understand what is modesty. They don't understand what is modesty, okay? If you're going to do a program, whereas within SSEHV, there is a great deal of emphasis on self-restraint, modesty, humility. That is not there in many programs. They say self-confidence means to be aggressive, right? Whereas self-confidence in success education is having the capacity to deal with others coming from a source of strength that is divinity. So humility and inner vision becomes central, right? So there's a big difference.
That's a very important point. Is that self-confidence is the greatest example. What Swami put self-confidence versus what in regular world, what people talk of self-confidence, completely different. Self-confidence means I can do it. It's showing more like power, I am the one. Whereas here, unfortunately, the translation self-confidence, the original word, is Atma Vishwasa. That means you are having confidence in the real Atma, self, big self. Usually we write self-confidence. Self-confidence is Atma Vishwasa. It is difficult to translate because self-confidence, but it's really the having confidence in the real you, which is Atma. That is, which other people have completely a different understanding what self-confidence.
If you have self-confidence, capital S self-confidence, you're not phased out about anything because you know you're divine. Divinity is within you. You are coming from that source, right? You don't have to be aggressive. But you have total faith in what you're doing. You do to the best of your ability and have total faith in Swami doing it for you. Right? It's a very different concept of self-confidence, capital S. Okay.
Sorry. Regarding.
Okay.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, as far as my knowledge goes about other religions also, every prophet, whether it is Muhammad, Jesus, Buddha, or any, emphasized on human values. But they talked only. There should be human values, even in Gita also. There are a lot of slokas on human values. But the difference between those prophets and Swami is that Swami gave the method also. They didn't give method. They talked only, but Swami gave the method. You know, these high teaching techniques and all those things. And they emphasized more on morality and culture and, you know, day-to-day values, which are changing. For example, you know, male and female hugging in this part of the world could be immoral today, but maybe after 20 years, it will be just like, you know, could be like France or any European country. I mean, it could be moral.
I think we should not confuse all that, because as you said, everything is relevant to the culture, what you do. Yesterday was a classical example. Leonardo Dora, you know, Dora is from here. He wanted to show his Telugu. Nenu preminchuchunnanu. That means I love you. He says, Leonardo, don't say that word here. They will slap you and beat you up, because here that is a romantic word people that you use for your girlfriend and a wife. So don't use. But here, I love you, we use commonly even in our culture. So it is here that I stated to you. So everything you should be careful in what cultural context you should say.
What I'm trying to say is, I'm just complete. What I'm trying to say is, values or what we are preaching or what we are teaching is human values, which is static. I mean, it's unchangeable, because this has something to do with the spirit, as you very rightly said. I mean, this is a spiritual sort of, you know, there is a spiritual eternal and unchangeable. So that is different from the morality or other values, societal, cultural values.
I want to come to the point that you made, Amma, about previous prophets, Buddha and Prophet Muhammad and others in Bhagavad Gita. We have got now an educational system which evolved over 150 years ago in Europe, in Western Europe. We didn't have that at the time. We've got universal education now, we didn't have it at the time. Do you know that if you take a look at people even now living in rural villages, let's say in a jungle, the noise level there is the level of your refrigerator at home. Okay? The noise level in the city is totally different. We are living in a culture which is very destructive of children, whether we like to know it or not. The culture at home is toxic, the culture in the schools is toxic, the culture in the wider community is toxic. So when we compare, those previous prophets did not need to labor the point of how to bring the values and give the methodology in the educational system. The educational system today is not what it was in the ancient traditions. Okay, so I will not fault those prophets and saints. They gave the values, but the way the values were then captured by the religion and became part of very rigid structures, that is what Swami has come to undo. The unity of faith is exactly about that. Let's undo all those structures, get back to what is human nature. The human nature is the same. Homo sapiens are the same human nature. Whether it's in Middle East or whether it is here, or whether it was 10,000 years ago or in 50,000 years ago. Right? The human nature is the same. We are divinity encased in human form. And somebody said 15% is negative and 85% is positive. That is the same. Right? So we want to capture the 85% and amplify it and replace the 15%. Okay, so Sister, your question.
My question is with regard to SSE again. Just want to know, I was a Balbika student, learned Balbikas from India. So that time we had a syllabus prescribed for us and we were following the pattern. But now I'm an SSE guru. So I would like to know whether we have an international syllabus for SSE.
Okay, you've really preempted what we were going to discuss next. Okay. So yes.
Sairam. I think, I would like to know whether, is there any specialized program that you can help us out to introduce this into prisons? Because the mindset of the people in the prisons are completely different from the community or the students. So, because one of the very effective places I think we can affect this program will be prisons, especially in Africa. I think, so is there any way that you can help us out to give us the program? Because certainly this will reform, the people in the prisons.
Okay.
Thank you.
The program has been used in prisons in the United States, and we can try and get hold of that. But the best thing would be if you work with the Education Committee and we develop a program which is contextualized to your specific needs. You see, you can't often take a program that has been developed in one country and apply it to another because cultures are different. The context is different. The level of criminality is different. So and the way the prisoners are treated is different. So I think if you can be in touch with us, we can help together, we can work together and develop a program.
Yes, excuse me, I want to make an observation in a couple of points. And it has to do with our orientation as participants in this workshop. We are participants and we have presenters. Now, in the general public outside, in the outside world, when we try to take a workshop, it usually costs us a lot of money, and et cetera, et cetera. And we have a certain attitude of being patient, trying to see what is this all about. We don't go and start at the very beginning of the presentation, give them some suggestions on how they should have set up that program, which is what I think we do because we're family and we think we can take liberties. But even in our family, whether it's our biological family or our spiritual family, we shouldn't disrespect our family members. We should give them at least the same amount of respect we would give an outside authority. There's an expression about a prophet is without honor in his own hometown. He has to go 50 miles away before people recognize. We have tremendously talented, hardworking, Swami-inspired, Swami-guided participants, presenters here. Let us be patient. Let us hear what the program is. They will tell us when we can ask questions, and ask questions in the framework of what they have suggested. This is not the time to redesign the workshop. So let's just show some discipline, some respect, and some good common sense.
Thirdly, also, I think it was Paul that this is interesting. Go ahead with your presentation. These are the questions at the end of the discussion. So
Okay.
then people can write down and then we can open it for discussion.
Okay.
Please go ahead.
So here's an organogram, if you like, or a diagram of how the links are there. We've got Sathya Sai Education, okay? And then Sathya Sai Education goes into Sathya Sai International Organization, so that we've got there an institution of training teachers and SSE programs. Then on the left here is Sathya Sai Schools. We've got SSEHV program in the schools. And we've got the institutes which are linked, and there's a question mark how they are linked, with the institute and the school. Now, those two, the institutes and the Sathya Sai schools, have SSEHV programs which are formalized because they lead to qualifications. And then we have got Sathya Sai Education, which is everything that includes Sri Sathya Sai institutions, the Institute of Higher Learning, the Book Trust, Sanatana Sarathi, Radio Sai, all the literature that there in Sai, Sathya Sai discourses and so on. So all that is Sathya Sai education. Basically, it's to sum up what we have understood, EHV, SSC programs.
I've traveled quite a bit and I get the same questions again and again. And I wanted to give you a framework by which you can answer the questions yourself. So the Sathya Sai education has institutions and has programs and delivery. SSEHV, SSC is a program. They're two different programs. They're not institutions. Sathya Sai Schools is an institution. Institute of Sathya Sai Education is an institution. So you have institutions that you see here. A national organization is an institution. They offer two programs, SSE and study circles. Right? In the current new guidelines, both of those come under the education. Actually it does. But right now, the delivery of those two programs are not in the education wing. The delivery of the program's study circle comes under the devotional wing, and the SSC program comes under the education wing. So, institutions, programs, and delivery. So, institutions offer training. For example, the ISSC or the national organization, they offer training. They offer training for different programs. If you take the training under the national organization, they are for the programs offered by the national organization, which is the SSC and study circle. So, if you find a confusion, who should train your study circle guides? Well, that should be the national coordinator. Of course, depending on the zone, they have different strategies on how to do that. But if you ask the ISSE to train for study circles or national or the SSC program, or vice versa, if you ask the national education coordinator to train for the SSEHV program, you can have confusion. Okay? So the institution, the program, and the delivery should be aligned. Right? If you have alignment, you'll get good consistency and you'll get people flowing in the right direction. Of course, there are skill sets that cross these things. Somebody in the ISSE maybe have the skill set for your national organization study circles. But if they wear the hat of the ISSE and then train for the national organization, it can be confusing. So please, if you can, bring alignment. If somebody is a shared role, they should be clear which hat they're wearing, so that the people who receive the training don't get confused. Is that clear? Yeah? Similarly, I'll give you another framework by which you can answer the questions such as the ones that you raised. There are three words I'll refer to: identity, integrity, and inclusivity. Okay? Now, identity in the Sathya Sai education programs is not just your physical identity, right? But it is divine identity, that we go from animal to human to divinity, right? If you look at other programs, they basically stop at human identity. For example, I'm a physical fitness, I'm very strong, or things like that. Integrity, what is integrity? Alignment of your behavior with your identity. If you're a dog, you would bark, right? Why does the small dog bark really loudly? Because he thinks he's a big dog. So he barks really loudly. That's it. So your identity and your behavior are tied together. That's what integrity is. In Sathya Sai education, we teach the students to align their behavior with their identity. So if you are a big dog, bark like a big dog. But if you're God, don't bark. Why are you barking? Right? That is not the same as other programs. They try to change your behavior through behavior modification. Oh, if you stay calm and quiet, then you'll be good. But as soon as they leave the house, then they start shouting again. So it doesn't help, right? So if you focus on behavior alone, most programs, character education programs, focus on changing behavior. It's not that Swami gave that as you think, so you become. As you identify yourself, so will your behavior be, right? So these, and the last one with Swami's program, Sathya Sai Education, is so important, is inclusivity. Include everybody. Everyone belongs, because God does not exclude anyone. I'm above you, below you, beyond you, everywhere. You can never go anywhere and be far from me. I'm always with you. This is unique. Nobody in the history of humanity has been able to say that and mean it and demonstrate it. So the program, in the source, the example that Swami set, and the delivery, all of these are just outstanding. There's no comparison to it. No other program is inclusive comprehensively. No other program teaches you to change your behavior and in alignment with your identity, right? They don't. So this is why you have a very unique opportunity. And here so are there any questions here? You see the Sri Sathya Sai institutions, including Radio Sai, and the Sri Sathya Sai Books and Publication Trust, and the Institute of Higher Learning, Vidya Vahini, all of these are here. Our international organization takes literature, media, and inspiration from them, but do not duplicate their programs. It's not a good idea. You take a program that is done here and then duplicate it in a different context without completely understanding the program, you run into problems. So that's why we are clear on what you get here. The national organization and the Sathya Sai schools. The national organization is an integral part of supporting the Sathya Sai schools. They work with them, they're helping them in many ways. And however, if you take the SSC program and try to apply it in the school, it's not appropriate. Even though some of your students in the school, or a majority of them, may be devotees, but that's not the forum for applying that program. So when you are a coordinator, leader, an officer in the Sathya Sai International Organization or the national organization, please make sure that the programs that are offered are the right program. So in the Sai centers or the Sai organization, you offer SSC program and Sathya Sai program. In the institute, through the institutes or the schools, you offer the SSEHV. Is this clear? Any questions on this? Okay. So the next part, this concludes the definitions and the terminology, all of these. The next part is the data that we are collecting. So the Sathya Sai International Organization has a wonderful survey tool. I'm sure you are all familiar with it. Adriano and the IT team, they're really mastermind for the survey tool. And this time we've added additional data collection for the SSC program and modified things. We're in the process of modifying the SSEHV data collection as well. I wanted to show you what that looks like, and so that when you start filling it out, you will understand. But before that, the motivation for collecting. So from 2012, I started collecting more accurate and detailed statistics about our SSC program. In the United States, we have 3,000 students, 1,000 teachers, and we have detailed data on them from 2012, 2014, 16, and now 18. But that survey we've used and integrated into the SSIS survey, and it will help you as a national organization, as a zonal organization, to get more accurate map of what your SSC looks like. And you'll find that the SSC programs tend to be very large in some centers and then very small in others. Or they're very large in the group 1 and 2, and they taper off significantly in the 3 and 4. Why is that? Where does that happen? So if you have this map, you can follow up a lot. And that's how we can implement inclusivity. So we know that these are centers where there is a group for large population. So then the training that should be offered to those teachers should be appropriate to what they have. If some of them are doing projects and programs at the local level, which are also being done at the international level, we can connect them to give that, to create a sense of belonging, that we are one organization and we can work together. So that's really why we're collecting the data. If you have questions about the data, I'd be happy to answer them. The survey tool has been updated by Adriano. We'll also add rubrics so that you'll have descriptions for every field. So it should make sense. I'll give you a quick run through of that. So this is the dashboard for the survey tool, and over here you'll have the SSC questionnaires. So of course the SSC questionnaire will be answered at the center level by the center education coordinator. In case the center education coordinator does not have access to the survey, you would have to make arrangements as the national organization and zonal organization to give access to the center education coordinator. Today the center president and probably the sub-regional presidents have access.
Oh, thank you. Some other commitment there. So thank you, Maria, and everybody. Sai Ram.
So this is what the survey would look like. There are different parts to the survey. There's basic information, this asking about the name and the logistics of the center, the SSC class address. Now, in many cases, the center is not the location where the SSC classes are conducted. About 80-20. 80% of the classes are conducted in someone's home, right? And 20% are in a public place. Centers also, 80% tend to be in a home and 20% in a public place. It depends on the zone, of course. It depends on the zone and the country. Depends on the conditions that you are facing. But a lot of our programs are conducted in people's homes. So that's why we want to know what is the address, so that we can compare and see where there are centers that actually meet for classes in the center itself. These are things that are computed automatically, and the class information goes into the classes and the timing, and then we look at how many groups you have in each center. You have SSC Group 1. There is a nursery is not part of the SSC program. Really, Swami said to start SSC or spiritual education after they're crossing 5, so from 6 years old. Some of our families, the families and the parents tend to be tiger moms and maybe not fathers. A lot of tiger mom parents are there, and they want to get their child early start. So I had a 2-year-old, the mother, 1.5-year-old, the mother told me, see, my son, he knows human values. Chapu, truth, right? So you know human values means you know the words. Truth, Sathya, Dharma, Shanti, Prema. 1.5 years old, well, I'm impressed by your ability to push your children. But really, Swami said, wait till they get past 5 years.
What about pre-SSC though?
Yes, so so there you go. Pre-SSC becomes Group 1. In some cases, even Group 2. The very advanced pre-SSC programs. They want to push prayers and get them, stories, get them. So the entire program is compressed and started into pre-SSC, and there's a lot of pride in the pre-SSC teachers. They feel very proud. See, my students have learned all the prayers, they know the Ashtotram, they know the... Oh God. So, this is not what Swami told. So,
Is it invalid? Basically, just wanted to know, because
yes.
there's a great demand for pre-SSC
Of course,
class?
there's great demand for pre-SSC classes. Be careful what program you offer. Pre-SSC is not part of the SSC program. It is a nice to have program that people, offer. But what are you going to do with the pre-SSC children? That's the question. Right? So this called, let me just go through this, I'll come back to your question. I know you're excited about it. Give me a few minutes, I'll come back. It's also called Lotus Group, pre-SSC, SSC kindergarten. There's a lot of play group, there's a lot of names for this. SSC has group 1, 2, 3 and 4. Those are the 4 groups. Pre-SSC is in, as it says, pre. It's not part. So please, is it clear?
So in that case, shall we stop it, sir? If you can be more clear.
I did not say to stop it. I said it is not part of the SSC. It's before SSC.
But it
It's
is
a different program.
pre-SSC.
So it's a different program. It's a different program.
We will come back to you, sister.
Yes.
We will have a talk afterwards.
Just give me a minute, because if we go into that, then we'll start debating whether there should be or should not be. I'm not asking you to, it's up to your organization. So there's a zonal chair, there's a national council president, you have center president. You're deciding what program you're offering. Make sure it's aligned. Make sure it's aligned. If you say pre-SSC and offer SSC, does it make sense? It's not aligned. Okay? So please.
You spoke about special teacher. What
Yes.
sort of special?
So in SSC we have teachers who assist with the yes, in the previous one. So you have sometimes teachers who are teaching bhajans, or they may be teaching prayers, right? Or they may be doing drama, or they may be training the students on public speaking. Or they may be teachers who are trained for special needs children. So there are some children who are in the autism spectrum, or they may be attention deficit issues. So I have in our program, in the international online SSC program, we have a trained teacher who is in charge of all the special needs education, including parent education for special needs children. Does that make sense? There is a lot of stigma associated with children who are special needs. People don't know what to do with them. Sometimes the SSC classes, they do one-on-one class, or sometimes they want to include them, but they don't know what they're doing. So if you need help, we have a specially educated and trained 25 years of training in this area, and she can train you, and she can train your parents also. Well done. These are SSC classes in by year. So in SSC, the recommendation, you don't have large classroom sizes. So sometimes people have 25, 50 students in the class because they say that they have only one classroom space. So you put everybody in one. Swami gave in a discourse, he said, quality, 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 not quantity. I don't want quantity. If you have 25 to 50 students in your classroom, for a simple example, do you know all their names? If you cannot tell all their names by heart, please don't have 25, 50 students in your classroom. A simple test, right? So also, if you can, in larger programs, divide the program into smaller sections. So they can have group 1 first year, group 1 second year, group 1 third year. Same thing for group 2, group 3, group 4. Sometimes they combine group 4 and group 3. Sometimes they combine girls and boys. It's not recommended. It's not recommended. The girls, especially in group 3 and 4, they really have their own interests. They have their way of communicating. It's not recommended you combine. So if you have questions about that, we can talk. In larger programs, they have sections. And this one, I'll give details later, but there's also here, we ask a question, would you recommend your program, and it's asking you to parents and children who know about Sai Center but are not yet part of SSE, parents and children who are new to the center, parents not associated with the center and new to Sai Baba but interested. So this is a single question which assesses where your program is thinking is, and it allows us to give you help when we see what is your program targeted at, what audience are you targeting. And then it's asking you some SSE highlights, opportunities, and challenges. So this is asking the centers what are some of their challenges, what are some of the strengths and opportunities that they have. So it's a comprehensive survey. We have 33,000 SSC students, but the distribution is not uniform. It's very spiked distribution. Nepal has 17,000, South Africa has 5,000, USA has 3,000, others have 100, right? New Zealand has about 125. So it's not evenly distributed. It's also very spiked in terms of the age groups. Group 1 and 2 is large programs. Group 3 and 4 are small. So this is the SSE survey. The SSEHV survey is not integrated into the center level. The SSEHV data will be collected and filled out by the institutes and the EC for this survey year. So Doris has completed the SSEHV survey. Would you like to say something about that?
One of the outstanding parts about the survey is that we're serving approximately 67,000 people per year with Sathya Sai Education and Human Values. And that's a rough estimate. We feel that there are more because everyone didn't report their projects. But next time around, we'll get more people reporting and we'll have, I feel, a larger number.
Sergio, you had a question?
Two questions. This section on the surveys is new, right?
Yes.
For this year.
This year, yes.
Is there an explanation? Because
yes.
people of site center level needs to know each box which
yes.
will there be a help section or
yes.
like something like that?
We actually, Adriano sent me an email just last night. He's working on, he has a list of work items to be completed by the next month. We'll also have a video showing you how to fill it out. And yeah.
The second point is, when we started this online survey, there was a big effort to translate to Portuguese, Spanish, Russian, and so on. So before we release this to people, we need to make these translations to this language too. So.
Agreed. Yes, sir.
Same situation.
Sairam, see, like Indonesia, we have 85 centers, and mostly of them are in a very small village. First of all, they don't understand English.
Yes.
And also to feel that also in English, that will be another situation again.
Yes.
So please find the solution for us so we can give the survey data as soon as possible as the time you want.
So very valid. Yes.
Because he's
same
for Nepal also.
Same thing. Same thing.
Yeah. So basically, the only problem why the survey has not reached.
Yeah.
I'm talking from Indonesia point of view, even Laos and Philippines, because they do not understand what to write and how to write and what to do.
Yes.
So we need your help on this.
Yes, I will work with you on this. Sergio, Amakaki, all the zones where you have follow. Yes. I agree. But do you agree in principle the value of getting the information?
Yes.
You agree?
Yes.
So this is showing you what we need to collect. But not necessary that everything will be collected. Not necessary that everything will be done in the January. We're going to it's going to take us some time. And I'm willing to work with each of the zones. In fact, it's the same issue with communications too. So we have a similar issue, so I'll combine both to be able to do that. The SSEHV, yes.
Sorry, I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just wondering, because I'm thinking about Group 4 transitioning into young adults, right?
Yes.
At the end of Group 4, can we probably add a function that shows how many students completed Group 4 and where I know this is a bit utopian, but where are they headed next? So if they're moving to another country, we can at least look at a list of children who are moving and kind of follow up with the youth coordinators there.
Yes, we can, absolutely.
That should be done. I think that should be done.
You mentioned that publications were part of this. I don't know. The manuals for Sathya Sai EHV have been, many of them have been developed by, say, educators who are doctors, have a doctor's degree in education, but maybe they've never given a class participated in an actual classroom experience with children. And so in Latin America, what we did was we asked that, or we tried to revise all the manuals with a committee of educators who had experience. And that worked a little bit, but some of these people were very, how do you say, jealous of the work that they'd done, and they didn't want to accept the changes that we suggested to their manuals. Now, I don't know if your committee, for instance, the international committee would have much more strength in terms of recommending changes, and if you've considered how to do this, in other words, to supervise all these different manuals that have been produced for the Sathya Sai EHV and also for Sai Spiritual Education, both.
Yeah.
I think that will be quite a massive task for our committee. But what we can do is to try and work with you and see what you want. Because if at every revision the Education Committee has to approve of the manuals, this is going to become a very massive task. On the other hand, I can see that it is a very worthwhile exercise. You know, there is always an inbuilt resistance to change. Education is what they call iterative. We learn each time we deliver a workshop, we learn from it, and we can then incorporate it into the next cycle. You know, so education by its very nature is iterative. It grows, we learn, we incorporate, we experience, we learn, we experience, we incorporate. So I think when there is a resistance to change, we have to be compassionate for those people who develop the programs, but I think inevitably there will be progress. And my own feeling is that we should not be too concerned about people who are jealous about their material because it has become dated. You know, by the very nature of the progress we have, then materials will get dated. You know, so we can talk, John, yourself and ourselves, and see what we can do to assist. But you know, the language will be a problem in this for us, our committee, and I think that the work would be quite massive if all the zones brought all their manual and said, you know, have a look at that. But it will be a worthwhile exercise doing it.
Okay, yeah, thanks. I think actually one of the solutions might be that this would be delegated to the zones to have this, say, oversight of the manuals, and then that once that zone committee approves a manual, that if they could send it to you and it comes out as being official, in other words, your stamp gives it a lot more authority because, you know, where you know the people, they say, oh, but this person doesn't know anything and they don't want to follow the suggestion, as it were.
Okay.
Whereas
I think
it would be much better coming from the international organization and just take the recommendation from our committees.
I think the ideal would be for each zone to have a zonal education committee, which is looking at manuals, which is looking at the performance, which is looking at training, which is looking at updating material, which is looking at evaluating stuff that is going on, and is assisting the education committee itself. So my own recommendation would be that each zone establishes an education committee dealing with the local matters. You know, then translation is not a problem because, you know, within the zones you will have the expertise to in language, and also you'll have good educators. And then we can relate with that education committee and their recommendations. I think that that's the way probably to go. Well, we'll discuss it with Dr. Reddy.
Yeah, I have one more question in the same area, and that is, if you have established any kind of a relationship with the Vidya Vahini here in Prashanti, and if there's some move to, say, apply or translate the work that they're doing, which is also very good, they have also a series of books that were done in Dharmashetra many years ago, and they're using in the Sai schools here in India. And I don't know if there's any relationship or if you've developed anything with them.
You know, the material developed in Dharmashetra is different from the one in Vidya Vahini. Vidya Vahini is a program for schools. And we need to, you know, I've not been there to the Human Value Center this time, but we had a look the last time we were there. There's quite an extensive amount of material there, but that is really for mainstream education. We can take a look at that and see whether it is any relevance, but you know, the cultures are different. They are very geared to the Indian system of the depth of education, which is integrated with values in different classes. That's my understanding of the Vidya Vahini program.
I just respond, yeah. I recently spoke to principal of...
You use the microphone.
I recently spoke to a principal of Sathya Sai School in Surat, and she enlightened me, and there's beautiful resources, no doubt about that, but it is completely calculated upon the Indian education system. So lesson by lesson, it is added beautiful resources such as PowerPoints and other workbooks and all that, but dictated directly by the education system of India. So I would always say, and I said previously, that we could use it as samples to give people that are not too familiar with how to develop value-based material. They could use it as samples or exemplars, and perhaps one or two sections may be, or a couple of sections may be similar to what we incorporate. But by and large, we can't just import it and use it like that.
It can't simply be imported and then cut and paste, because that won't work.
Yeah, they have concepts that are very good that might be very applicable to us, as like, you know, clubs, for instance, after-school clubs. And they had this, you know, exhibition a few years ago, which they had 4 different sections with the classroom, the corridor, the community, and I don't remember the other one. But in other words, they were developing a concept of an integrated approach to the human values and how to present them in all schools. And so I don't think we should completely eliminate this idea as a result of, say, well, there's a cultural difference because you know, they have all these stories about the king that's renounced his kingdom and gone into the forest to meditate or something like that. But they do have some really good ideas that we could apply, I think, if we were a little bit closer to them. So I don't know.
Thank you, John. We will, John, I'll have a discussion with you on that, and we can maybe make a combined visit to the Vidya Vahini and see what is there.
One more part of the survey. So in the survey, we don't have yet a construct for the Sathya Sai schools and the institutes. So that data at present we are collecting with your support. So the zone chairs, the institute directors, and the school presidents, principals, we will be contacting through you to get help to collect the data about the number of schools. That is a dashboard that we have created. But the number of Sathya Sai students in Sathya Sai schools, number of teachers in Sathya Sai schools, the number of teaching faculty members in the ISSCs, this data we are collecting and will be updating. As we go in the future, subsequent years of the survey, the construct of Sathya Sai school may also be added. Then that can be accessed by the organization, and you can. For now, we will be updating this data with your support. Is that clear? Any questions about that? So we will be contacting zone chair or the institute director principal of the school to collect this data. Any other questions about the survey and the data collection? So that's the takeaway. We need help, not just in documenting the survey, but also how do you administer the survey and collect the data. Okay? Thank you.
Okay, Doris wishes to thank all the zone chairs, all the central coordinators, all the national presidents that gave all the material for the book that that she helped together on the SSCHV programs. So a great deal of gratitude is being expressed by. Do you want to say a few words?
Just thank you very much. And there was such cooperation through the whole process of pulling this together. And it showed what can happen when we all work in harmony and in unity.
When will that be available in a soft copy?
We have to make a few changes, minor changes, and we have a link that we will give access to,
So we'll
the
get
soft
something
copy.
from you.
I'm sorry?
So we'll get some information from you that it's now
From the
available.
EC, yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it will be soon.
It will be within about 4 weeks. Okay, now one of the things that we want to do is to establish, the EC wants to establish a more viable contact with the zone chairs. And that is, we will depend upon requests from the zone chairs if you want to make contact with us. And if we are there as a resource. So if we can assist the zones, then we would like to do that. It was previously proposed that we have a workshop with each of the zones. We are happy to do that, but I think it will depend upon the request from the zone chairs if you want specific help. Okay, now moving on. We've been talking and giving you a lot of information. I want you to reflect now. Just let's reflect on some of these questions. Why have we established Sathya Sai schools? There's own chairs with Sathya Sai schools, yes?
Transformation of society.
Transformation, whose transformation?
Well, devotees and non-devotees, the entire world. Eventually.
How would a school transform the entire world?
But children will be citizens of the future world, and they'll also influence their parents. So that's how transformation goes.
Okay, anyone else? I mean, you got 13 schools in your zone, right? You got, Sergio, you got about 12 schools in your zone. And then, yeah, why?
I don't know about other country, but the reason we established Sathya Sai School in Indonesia. The reason we established Sathya Sai School in Indonesia because we think and we see the community need the teaching of Sathya Sai education, human values. And we have one in a Muslim area, which basically is in outskirts of Jakarta, where we established a school. And also, although the name is Insan Teladan, but practice everything Sathya Sai School. And over the 10 years, today we can see the children is day and night different compared with the children from the school which is near to this Sathya Sai School. So as far as we concerned, that we feel Sathya Sai School needed in an area where we need to give a good education for the future of the children in terms of course, Sri Sathya Sai education human values.
Yes. I want to take a little bit broader. Yes, John.
Well, Latin America, we have probably more schools in the zone than any other zone. But originally, the Sathya Sai schools in Latin America were established because a devotee who had direct contact with Swami was inspired and said, Swami, can we start a school here in our country? And Swami says, yes, do it. And that's how the schools got started. But now, the schools that are starting, there's a complete change. And what's happened is that we've had these, like Ganesh, we've had this human values program in the community, and this has been going on for 10 or 12 years, and then the community itself, the parents of the children have seen this change in the children, and they say, oh, you know, you should have a school. And so recently, for instance, in the Dominican Republic, we started a Sathya Sai school, but it was because of the petition of the parents and not because some interaction in Swami.
Thank you very much, John. I think that you have really made very important points. In the history of the schools, this was an organic, spontaneous development initially. People used to come here, they were inspired by Swami, they would go away, they'd establish a school without much planning. Without much planning. Now, when we're doing accreditation, we go to schools. The reason for establishing school is a school should be a laboratory to look at the models of education that we can take from Sathya Sai school to the public school system. That is the reason. But in that process, there is tremendous transformation of the organization, of the people who are concerned with the development of the school, the parents, the children, and then evaluation of what is happening in the school is a very important aspect of Sathya Sai school. What we use in different countries, because the cultures are different, what we use as the models of lessons, training of teachers, contextualizing to the educational needs of the country, which are very specific in different countries. Then we can take the model from there and offer it to public schools. Sathya Sai education is about full human development. Ordinary secular schools are focused on equipping the children with intellectual skills, to some extent physical skills, to enable them to go into the workforce. They are not about full human development. There are some children who undergo full human development. But Sathya Sai schools are a way of delivery of education to cater to the needs for full human development. And the transformation that happens of the teacher as a model, the parent as a model, the lesson plans as models for developing people, developing the future generations. That is the reason. Now, in our visits to Sathya Sai schools, we have seen some very, very good schools. Schools that are able to do this, schools that are amazing institutions of transformation. But there are other schools that are not. They are struggling. They are struggling with certain resources. They are struggling with the training of teachers. They are struggling with the inadequate resources. They are really not in that sense. So our function as an education committee, in the accreditation process, we have learned a lot about these schools. And we have learned what we need to do in order to take the school to the next level of development. So you look upon the education committee as a resource that you have in this organization. We don't go there to a school for the accreditation process simply to tick boxes. You know, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this, you've done this. No. We go there to take a total look at we go there to take a total look at the impact, at the outcomes, and the impact on what do we want from the schools? We want full human development. We want the next generation of children to be optimally developed human beings, who are not handicapped, by trauma from their families and from the school system. Currently, the school system is creating a toxic generation of children who are traumatized by their educational experience. So, holistic development of children, and it also does a lot for the Sathya Sai organization, because in our experience in accreditation, the role of the Sathya Sai organization in the school, particularly in ensuring adequate resources, is very important. A lot of the schools are struggling with sustainability because they were established by one person with a good heart and a good solid balance. Now that person is gone. Or they have moved to Budanhali. Or their business has gone down. or they are died, or they've retired, right? And their income has gone down. So now then we find that the school is in a crisis. So we need proper planning for schools. And as John has said, there was a time of organic growth. Schools just sprouted. But now we have to plan, and the process of accreditation is to take a look and see how we can shore up the strength in the school, its management structures, its training programs, its delivery of material, and also all that it takes to have a really good first-class school. Yes, John?
You're completely right. The experience that we've had is that the successful size school is that school in which the teachers have so much love for the students that they would do anything, sacrifice anything to have that particular student or all of their students be successful in life. And the student also develops this love for his teacher. And this is a successful Sathya Sai school where there's this love between the children and the teachers. Now, the other side of it is, though, in El Salvador we had a devotee who came here. She was an educator and learned about the education in human values program. And when she went back, she was actually named Minister of Education for the country. And so she wanted to apply the human values program in the whole country. And she rewrote all the textbooks for the schools, all the manuals. She trained, I don't know, 100,000 teachers, and received 2 awards from the United Nations for instilling human values in the education system. And also, she was named the Minister of Education through 2 presidencies, which is very unusual because it's a political appointment. And yet, the result was almost 0. And why was this? Because the teachers looked at this program as being more work and not something that was going to be a very beneficial tool for them. And somehow, this has to be, when you're starting a SAI school or you have a SAI school, what you've got to do is convince the teachers that this is going to make their job easier and not harder, and that it isn't additional work, that it's going to be for their transforming their own lives because it's going to fill their life with the love of the students. So I think that this is the love is the ingredient which somehow we've got to motivate all of our educators to try to implant or to have it grow, as it were, in the schools. And then when we see that, we're going to have successful schools, we're going to have successful students.
I think we want to finish the formal presentation here. We can continue this next time we meet, but if there are any questions, we will take that. All right, just one more thing.
Oh. So just to there is with the Sathya Sai schools, as John mentioned, many of them started on their own, and in fact, Sister Lalini is discovering new schools as she travels through the zone, and because some of them we didn't even know that they are there. They're really dedicated people who have been and who are running the schools. And how to bring for them a sense of belonging, that the organization is not just, once in 5 years, 10 years, somebody comes suddenly to visit you and then there's no contact. It feels like you're in the Amazon or something. So how to bring a sense of belonging? One of the, so as an international organization, we are constantly looking for ways to build bridges, to build contact, and to include everyone. And we have a tool that actually is used for schools, public schools, that is professionally available, that we're slowly piloting and introducing to our program, to our education program. I'll just quickly show you what it lets you do. So this is called Blooms. It's a tool for communicating between teachers, parents, the students in a school, in a regular school. So we introduced this in our international online SSC program, so you have groups. I teach in the group for boys class, and we have a group for the teachers as well. There are many things here, including tracking behavior. There's advanced features which you won't go into, but just a simple example of what is really valuable here. One of the challenges for our schools and institutes is that they speak a different language than the reader. And if the person who has to communicate has to translate everything to English, it's a non-starter. Okay? It's non-starter. So this tool allows you to post in your own language as a contributor, but the reader can translate it into their own language. So for example, here I set the language. This group's language is English, but I set my language as Spanish, and you can ask it to translate, and it will translate the post to Spanish. There's about 100 different languages that you can set. As a reader, you can set your language to whatever you want, and as you can see, it translates to whatever language you wish. So this is a simple feature that so this is an example of how we can encourage people to share. In fact, after my trip to South America, to Ecuador and to Brazil, the teachers, the principals, they're all in contact with me via WhatsApp. So WhatsApp is good, but it doesn't allow you to do something as simple as this. So in this tool, as we introduce it to the principals and of the different schools and institute directors, and they start sharing, you'll start seeing things in their language, but the reader can translate it to the language of their choice. Yes.
I need some help over here.
Yes, please.
You see, we all understand that millions of dollars people put in Sathya Sai School all over the world. My question is now, if possible, Education Committee or World Foundation come up with some kind of tools that after the student leave the school, we still can communicate with them, we can see the ratio, where they are, what they do, are they success, what the challenges they face. Because having the school alone, spending millions of dollars, and after the children leave, we don't know what happened with them.
Actually, we do have a tool which is already being used. You may not be aware of it. I will educate you and the other zones as well. We do have a tool which we haven't fully implemented in terms of collecting and registering all the students, especially the ones who graduate. But we can, and definitely we will do that in the next year and a half.
Thank you.
Srivas, I think to add to the point, we have in Philippines lots of students who have migrated to USA.
Yes.
They worked there for a while, and then the homesickness was there. They came back to our school, and they're teachers in our school now.
Yes.
In Philippines. So I think, I say again, it's a question of how much we've showed to them, the amount of love you give to them. They want to come back.
Yes.
You know, I think that every school should have some kind of relationship with the children who graduate from the school as the alumni of the school. Now, this is very
That is lacking in
yeah,
our.
that is lacking. But I think, if looking down the track, I think we should do that. I know that the teachers change in a school, I know the principal changes, but I think a system can be put in where the children are encouraged to. Now, I went to Brazil, to Rio Preto. The alumni of the school are playing a tremendous role. This is a school in a very dangerous part of the country with lots of drug addicts and really people who are unsavory people. And the alumni are coming into the school on a regular basis. Every Saturday they come there, they have a meeting, you know, and I think if we can encourage the, you know, it's not our responsibility, is not ended when the children are just graduated and then gone. The same is true of the institutes. The institutes should really be establishing the alumni group And what the alumni are doing in SSEHV, often it happens, we put in effort and training and spend money on training them and so on. SSEHV graduates with a diploma course, then they drift here and there and they go and do something and we don't even know what they're doing. You know, so there should be a strong centripetal force. You know, really some kind of a alumni group and registering and maybe a newsletter or something to circulate. It would be very inspiring if some of the children who have gone to United States from, let's say, Philippines, are successful leaders there.
Yeah.
You know, it will be inspiring for the school.
Some institutes have that.
Some institutes have that, but I think that we should really have that. Now, time is getting on, and I want the Indonesian group to stay behind. We need a meeting with you, so this is an opportune moment for the meeting at the end of this session. Okay?
Salam to all of you. Did you find this session useful?
Yes.
We're so happy. So we were thinking of how to continue our relationship here and working relationship. And we were thinking of until next time we come here. It's a long time. So in the meantime, we can have online meetings with you. And this can be, if you have some kind of, there could be follow-up on this here, or some of the issues which we didn't have the chance to get into depth with, we could make an online meeting and bring that on the agenda. We also had some requests from people who could not attend, could not come here, and they asked us, can you have an online meeting where we can sort of be informed about what is going on in this workshop. So this is another possibility. So and there could be other issues, burning issues from your side. You think this could be wonderful to discuss with us. So this could be another topic, and we could invite, then enlarge the group with your permission to see if others also would like to join in on these issues that you have in your area. So what we would like to suggest is that it is in the hand of you. You will have to come and ask us for what you need. And you will have to arrange so that we arrange the meeting, and then we will step in, and then we will have the contact. You will decide the agenda of what we have to discuss, because it should be what you need, it should be what you are interested in, and this can only happen if you come up, you take the initiative to plan this and ask us for workshops and online meetings. Okay?
For the follow-up, we can have a web conference with the zones. We request the zone chair and the central coordinator, if you can coordinate with your zone or countries, however you think is better for you. And then if you, we have Omesh, who's on our team, he'll schedule with you, work out. He knows all of our schedules, and he can work out the schedule and arrange the meeting time with everyone. That would be better, because each zone has different requirements, and I'd rather it comes from.
We are traveling also.
Yeah, we're traveling.
What I'd suggest is we do zone-wise, you know?
Yes.
Because we have a very peculiar situation in
Yes,
Africa.
yes.
It's quite different.
Of course.
I think we will organize the zone-wise.
No, we'll give you a report for the zone.
Yeah,
For all the 12, 13 schools, and give a complete report.
Yes.
And then we take it from there.
Yeah,
And then
yeah.
we'd like your input.
Yeah, I think we were going to catch up with Lalini on the 13 schools, and we'd love to see you
Yeah, so
at another meeting.
yes.
But I think in terms of the online meetings,
Yeah.
if you have any matter that you want to discuss in education,
Right.
then we can have an online meeting with
There's
you.
a lot. There's a lot to discuss.
Yeah, so
And
we,
our situation in Africa is very peculiar. And like you said, I have 12, 13 schools. Most of the schools have inherited. You know, they all started before me when I came on the scene.
we'll be very happy to assist in whatever way you want.
And treating them all, you know, equally is a uphill task. We're going through a lot of stress.
Okay.
This session is being recorded in 4 different ways.
Yeah.
It's recorded on my computer. Billy Fong has recorded it, and we have a recording from the board, audio recording as well. So we will post the slides and the recording with the help of the IT team, so that somewhere where you can access it. Okay?
Yes.
So
Chairman, I just want to add this. I think I spoke to you,
Yes.
Srinivas. The Zone 4B will be having a retreat in Bali, and it will be somewhere in mid-January. And probably education, every aspect will be discussed. And maybe if you're free, and I'll send you the ticket.
In January, you're going to.
Yeah, we will discuss later. For those of you who are interested in the SSE, if you have questions, I'll stay back. We can stay back and talk about it. There's a lot going on since the SSE International SSE conference that we had here 2015. A lot progress has been made. We have been doing pilots in the United States, and also we have an international online SSE program that implements the frameworks that we developed. So when you asked about syllabus, or somebody asked about syllabus for SSE, please stay back, we can discuss. Okay, thank you.
Okay, so thank you very much for coming. This workshop is you. We're going to have a bit of a big song before you go away. We want you to leave in a good mood. And thank you very much for coming.
If you would please hand down our thank yous to the people in your zones for the wonderful work, and we could tell that many of them struggled with filling out the questionnaire, but they did it. And the work they're doing is just really outstanding. So please hand down thank yous to those in your zones and the number of hours they're putting into implementing SSEHV programs. You can be very proud of those that are working with SSE and SSEHV in your regions.
So thank you very much. The Indonesian group, please stay behind.
You get the song from Srinivas.